Yep, you're in.
Just gonna throw a little rhythm in there, a little spice. Okay. In 3, 2. Hey guys, welcome back to the Outriders Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Ben.
And we, this month, are talking about things that have meaning and things that have some depth to them, in anticipation of BoJack Season 5 coming out.
That's the only reason we're doing this.
Like, pretty much, yeah. The final season of BoJack is coming out September 17th. Which is good because that means I have like 2 weeks to play that new Spider-Man game before I lose my will to live.
I was gonna say that also came out
That comes out the 7th.
But I don't have a PS4.
I do. So it's down there. It's primed.
It's primed and ready
today. I've got the pre-download primed and ready to go when it goes online.
You've preloaded it.
And I'm probably just gonna do that all week. So I'm glad that BoJack is like after that. I've got time to like get sad about Spider-Man and then come back and be sad about BoJack. But kind of what we've done this week is we've dug up an old gem that started as a cult movie classic and has become like recognized as like a genuine classic. Which is interesting, and we'll kind of touch on that as we go through the kind of some of my research turned up some interesting stuff about this film, because this week we're talking about the meaning of Donnie Darko.
Donnie Dark, the boy Darko.
I have a fun fact before we get started about my experience with this film. The first time I saw it was at your house.
I find that interesting. Was it? That would have been like 2000. Yeah, that would have been like 2014, 2015. When I was dating a certain person.
I think it was during high school.
Yeah, because she was the reason I saw it for the first time. I think it was way earlier than
that. I think it was like 2011 maybe.
Yeah. 2011, no.
It must have been
2012. 2011.
It was either really early
not 2015.
Well into university.
No, it would have been early.
Yeah,
because Donnie Darko. I got introduced to that film.
Yeah, because we watched this at your place, and it was one of the first films that like I was intensely interested in understanding why I had an emotional reaction to it. And I want to read this quote from Richard Kelly is the director.
Yeah.
And he's been so it's been 15 years since the film came out, and he's been asked repeatedly like why he thinks it was successful. And he said, quote, "All the movies that I make will always be set in very fucking bird that's like right next door.
Noisy minor.
Quote, "All the movies I make will always be set in a very specific timeline with a date stamp and a time stamp because I need that specificity of a world where the characters exist. So, if anything, the fact the film continues to resonate with contemporary teenagers, to me, is a reminder that the more things change, the more they stay the same. These things that teenagers have to confront, these painful things that adolescents face, a boy becoming a man, a girl becoming a woman, these thresholds of adolescence, they're never going away. So if the narrative can transcend the timeline, then that's a function of the narrative, and it means it speaks to real human experience that's complicated, funny, and frightening, and all those things." And that was from Richard Kelly, the director. And he was 24 when he made this.
What?
Which is insane.
What? I'm 23.
He literally,
I'm wasting my life.
He came out of film school and he made this.
Jesus Christ. It does look like a film out of film school.
Well, there's a few things about this film that I find completely intriguing from like a creation perspective, which we'll touch on without like, because I think what we want to talk about is the film itself, but I think it's important to acknowledge how the film came together. So he basically had the idea for the film and the script pretty much already finished. Right. And he did his original cut and it was terrible. It was just a nonsense mess, and like it explained all the time travel elements and all that sort of thing. It was just very heavy-handed and nonsense. And the editor who came in and his cinematographer were the people who were kind of able to rein him back in and say, no, this has to be consumable. So they made the time travel stuff much more ambiguous.
Well, because the minimal research I did was mainly just into the difference between the two versions.
Yes.
And my God, I'm glad I didn't watch the director's cut.
Sounds terrible.
Sounds horrible.
I mean, even the fact that so as a brief summary of the plot, because I think it's important to understand what we're talking about.
Sure.
Basically, we join Donnie Darko on this hill where he wakes up, and he narrowly avoids being killed by this jet plane engine that
just lands in... What? No. So he wakes up. The film just opens with him going home. Mm-hmm. He's on the hill. The next day, he gets woken up by like a voice in his head.
Yeah,
and
that's
a 6 foot tall bunny.
Yeah,
and he goes outside and follows him. Falls asleep in a golf course.
Yeah.
And then go, and then narrate. Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
the opening
right.
is he's just on the hill.
Right.
But
which the implication is that was, but yeah.
That he's just like, he sleepwalks.
Yeah,
like that's that.
The basic premise of the story itself is that Donnie Darko, a young teenager who is schizophrenic, is on new medication and finds himself hallucinating a 6-foot-tall man in a rabbit costume called Frank. And Frank encourages him to do increasingly dangerous things. And at the same time, he begins a relationship with the girl that he barely knows, the new girl in school. And the surrealist sort of followings on of this is an exploration of time travel. Donnie tries to work out whether or not things are actually happening or they're part of his schizophrenia. And the ultimate sort of the crux of the story is Donnie is able to look through a wormhole and understand that the jet engine time traveled from when it destroys his house later in the story, and he decides that the events that are set in motion that result in his girlfriend's death, he can prevent if he just lets himself be killed by the jet engine. And in the end, he sacrifices himself and dies to save his girlfriend, even though she would never have known him, given that he dies.
Yeah.
That's kind of the global overview. There's some stuff in there as well where, like, he goes into the basement of a pedophile and discovers that man's a pedophile and, you know, is able to...
Another correction. He burns down the house of the pedophile, and in the process of the firefighters investigating the fire, they find the basement full of child pornography.
Yes, exactly.
He just sets the house on fire, and it's just
a coincidence.
It's just a bidding. You found a pedophile.
Yeah, and then after that, we learn a lot more about that character.
Yeah,
and you know,
Jim Cunningham.
Exactly. So when I rewatched this last night, I was expecting to. I remember this film being complicated, but not necessarily complex. Like, I remember the narrative being complicated.
I remember it being, just like another kind of like Fight Club, just mindfuck kind of film.
It's very pseudo-intellectual. Like, I can see why it attracts teenagers in the nicest way possible.
There's some Goodwill Hunting vibes in there as well, with the sort of the misunderstood genius trope.
Yes,
and like especially him when he's talking to his physics teacher, like that's just ripped straight out of Goodwill Hunting.
We'll touch on that in a minute because I want to start with just some of the basic like ideas that are expressed in the subtext, and then we can get to like
the references
why this film makes you think you're smart when you watch it, because that's kind of the trick of this film. Is it makes you think that the time travel is really cool and interesting, but in the process lures you into being interested in the love story,
right?
Which I think like a lot of, you know, if you talk to a lot of people in the film industry now, I imagine, particularly like 30 to 40-year-olds, this was a film that, when it came out, sparked their interest in cinema. So I'm curious to wonder how many people accidentally got sucked into caring about a female character by this film. Yeah. So the biggest note I had was that it makes you feel smart by introducing the time travel element, but ironically, the same trick that the film plays on you, which is to make you think that you're smart by making you think you understand this time travel thing, is also the same trick that Frank plays on Donnie throughout the process of the film, where it makes Donnie feel like he's seeing through the world. He's like the kind of, as you said, like the smart dude, like the fucking, every teenager wants to be like the guy who's different from everyone. Yeah. But he's like ultimately being tricked by this character of Frank, for Frank's own means, because Frank wants to see Donnie get hurt and he wants to see these things occur.
Right.
So that's kind of the basic idea of the film. And the other note that I had, which I think will be the jumping off point for what we really want to talk about, is that this film threads the needle between like being a dumb, like Despicables film, like a dumb kids film, and being like a highly intellectual, like Mulholland Drive, like, you know, Inception level, like what's going on? How do you have to like unpack it by watching it? So this kind of threads the line where it's just smarter than most teenagers' ability to perceive it, that those that work it out feel smart. But it's also just dumb enough that you can solve it pretty quickly, so you feel like you've done something.
Well, I think there's a lot of really interesting, just like straight like horror tropes in this film.
Yeah, and talk to me about that.
Well, apparently when this film was marketed, so this film came out in 2001, and so the
first cut was 2000.
Yeah.
Wide cinema release. 2001.
So it had like a festival run in like early 2001, and then had its theatrical run in October 2001.
Yes.
That
was in exclusive set places like Hollywood.
So October 2001 was what? 4 weeks after 9/11?
That was a big thing where it was very
They had to cut all of the marketing down because they had to cut all the marketing down because the crux of the film is a plane crashing into a house.
It got a lot of shit for it at the time.
they sort of
bad timing.
they sort of shifted around the marketing and just turned it into marketing it as there's a creepy bunny.
Yeah,
That's the film.
It was marketed more as a horror film.
So everyone was like, "Oh, it's a horror film." We're like, it kind of is. You
Yeah.
know, like
You think so?
there's Halloween.
Yeah.
You know, it centers around Halloween. Like the climax of the film occurs during like Halloween. There's like a big party when the parents are away, and it's
Yeah.
like gets out of hand. Well, obviously gets out of hand.
Of course.
You know, like the main character has sex. I don't know. That's a horror trope.
Yeah.
There's a creepy bunny. Like
It has
there's-
elements to it, yeah.
If this was like, you know, like Smiley Face or something like that, it's the same film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're in the there's a few like mirror shots where he like closes the bathroom.
Yeah.
They don't fuck with it because it's not a horror film, but
there's elements
like
to it.
it's full of so many like horror tropes. And, you know, like the references to Psycho, the
I think
fact that
that's-
she's reading Stephen King's It
There's a
at
lot
the start of
and
the film.
Even like the time travel stuff, like the interest that Kelly had in Stephen King is so evident.
It's so obvious
Like,
that
even the
he's,
fact
you
that-
know,
yeah.
even like, you know, the Donnie himself does the Kubrick smile throughout the entire film. There's like,
yeah, it's an
it's
homage.
filled with what's his name? The pre-Kubrick sort of horror. What's his name? Big film, like
Yeah.
early black and white film,
Yeah, yeah.
Psycho. You know,
Yes.
like it's got a lot of that. Like the film itself is like an homage to horror films. You're looking up the name of
Yeah, 'cause
probably one of the most influential directors of all time. Yeah. It starts with H, I think.
Hitchcock.
Yeah. It's like there's so much to this film that is like it. You know, it's sort of like a strangest thing kind of
bleeds
situation.
culture, yeah. It feels to me.
It's got kids riding bikes in the 80s.
Well,
Like it's
it speaks, and that goes to that quote that we read from Kelly at the start, which talks about the fact that like he very deliberately said, and you can see this from his later films, and sometimes to their detriment, that Kelly's obsession was like, this is a specific thing in a specific time, trying to achieve something very specific. Donnie Darko feels like, because it's his first film, it felt less obtuse and like less trying to achieve something.
right.
So one of my issues with the film, because like the meaning of the film tends to vary based on how you read it. Like a meta reading of this film is that like it's about the way that we consume stories. Like there's a whole really interesting, like if you go on the internet, there's a whole thing about like the way that Frank communicates narratives and ideas to the character of Donnie is like reminiscent of like this kind of like PostReagan anxiety, where America was in a pretty good place. Like things were going pretty okay.
They got that Reaganomics going
Post-Reagan.
for them.
Yeah, and like America was pretty good, and it led to this like existential crisis within Middle America and like Upper Middle America, where a lot of you see this like in a lot of Stephen King, especially like Stranger Things kind of era stuff, where there's this expression by a lot of the kids that they feel this existential dread. They're like trapped in their like middle class life. There's like a sense of weird impending doom, and this takes that literally, and it goes, what if you knew the world was gonna end? Like it's a play on that idea of like like everyone else is obsessive about their world. Like all of the other characters are obsessives. They've all got a vice they use to like deal with being in this white suburban life. Like, you know, there's the dance troupe, and the pedophile like consumes that adult content.
just casually consumes
And like
child pornography.
like the mother
Yeah, sure.
smokes, and like there's a whole bunch of things that are in that the other characters have a coping mechanism, but Donnie doesn't, and that's why he's able to like see through the existential dread and see
Right.
like the future, you know, doom coming. That's like one reading that has been really popular on the internet, but like it just feels lazy to me to be like, yeah, I don't know. It supports,
Everyone else is so shallow, but
supports
Donnie's
that
the
teen
smarest
thing.
guy in the room.
which I never buy.
It's like Rick
'cause
and Morty again.
right, yeah. But like clearly the text, like that's the text, but the subtext is like, what a dumb way to live.
Well, yeah, my sort of reading coming out of the film was sort of it got some weird sort of like 13 Reasons Why feelings, not from a like, you know, because that series is pretty shit, but from the perspective of it sort of has, so Donnie ostensibly commits suicide, like he
sacrifices himself, but it is suicide.
yeah, you know, like, you know, two sides of the same coin.
What's the what if question, right? What if I did kill myself?
And it's yeah, and so there's the film, you know, you see one of the sort of sides, you know, you see the side of when he's sort of still alive, in
Yes.
this sort of timeline where
He does have the love and the connections.
where he's going down the path where he has Frank, where he continues down having schizophrenia and having these
Yes.
delusions and all these things that happen, and continuing down the path of burning houses.
Yeah.
And you see the outcomes of that, which is, someone he likes dies, he kills someone else,
Yeah.
he burns down a house.
Wait, hang on, but you think that Frank was real when he shoots him with the gun? You think that actually happens? Because this is a big point of contention on the internet when he shoots Frank in the eye, right? So the cop, and then
Yeah.
You think that happens?
Yeah.
Because I
mean, yeah, I think it happens.
I don't see. Okay, I don't see
I think if you take away if you ascribe just the fact that he sees Frank, the hallucination Frank without the mask, and he has the fucked up eye. If you just take that as, when you're like asleep and you're having a dream, and I get this sometimes where like in my dream I'll be like, oh, my alarm is about to go off, and then like 5 seconds later my alarm goes off, but that's just your brain kind of
preempting
doing time travel.
Yes, but I
just describe it to that on a longer time frame.
That's interesting.
Of like he has the perception that when I was at the movie theater, I saw him with the eye because he's already shot him. And he kind of just he just sort of adjusts his memory. Like he's an unreliable narrator.
I can see what you're saying. My only argument against that, not even from like a logic perspective, but just from like a thematic one, is there's a scene where Frank touches Donnie's eye, like the same eye that he gets shot in.
Right.
Later on. And for me, I was like, well, that's symbolic of like
when it shows them all.
Yeah, to me that spoke to a level of like maybe the whole point of it is that it's not that Frank is real or that any of this is going to happen. It's that this Frank apparition, whether it's brought on by the schizophrenia, and obviously in the director's cut, it's very explicitly a hallucination, which completely ruins the whole film. Yeah. But it's like whether or not that's a hallucination doesn't really matter because the outcome was kind of always going to be the same. Like whether or not Frank is real and is driving that car.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
do you know what I mean? Like,
so continuing my reading.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that we have this idea of what happens when he isn't dead. And then in 13 Reasons Why, the crux of that series is like she kills herself and just creates like a series of revenge tapes.
I honestly, the first time you said that, I was thinking of 10 Things I Hate About You, and I was like, how is he going to connect these? You mean the recent Netflix series?
13 Reasons Why.
Not the rom-com from the 90s.
No.
With
The
Heath
one
Ledger.
where she like kills herself and leaves like a series of tapes, ruining people's lives.
I was like ready for you to connect those dots. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. So that
same page.
That series is like it's like like revenge suicide, and that film was kind of like.
Is that how you read that? Have you I don't know if it's revenge suicide.
Which she like leaves behind a series of tapes. It's just like
it
this
has similarities.
Which is I just think this is one of the reasons why I kill myself, because you made my life shit.
I think from a reading perspective, I just don't want to like give anyone the impression that show is about revenge suicide, because it's
not about revenge suicide.
But I know what you mean. It has similarities.
It deals with suicide as a form of and the outcomes of suicide.
Yes, and and it uses time travel as well.
What,
from a film perspective, like you travel back and forth in time.
Oh, it uses like flashbacks and stuff. Yeah, sure.
Which is what these films use, very similar techniques. Just one of them is explicitly time travel.
So when Donnie does actively go and sort of he kills himself, I'm going to say it. You're sort of, it's like, okay, on the surface, it's like, okay, those bad things don't happen. Like he doesn't burn down the house, he doesn't flood the school, like he doesn't, his mum doesn't get killed as well in the plane crash because she was in the because there's Laura actually explained this to me after, but there's actually a chain of events where like he doesn't flood the school, so the teacher, the English teacher, doesn't get fired. The crazy church lady, so the pornography isn't found, so he isn't sort of indicted, so she doesn't start like the crusade to get him out of jail, the crazy church lady. So she goes on the plane, and we assume, and so she's on the plane when it crashes, not the mother, which I guess swings and roundabouts.
There's always collateral.
So like, and the love interest doesn't die, and he doesn't get shot in the eye, blah blah blah. But there's also some other big things where it's like my sort of takeaway was that it was like, all these good things happen, except for the fact that you've left behind this fucking destroyed family, which is very evident by the end of the film. the pedophile
Gets away.
who's also currently like in very close ties with the person who runs an all-girls dance troupe.
Yeah, the spark. What do they call the sparkle?
I don't know, the sparkle dance shit. So
it's a
like,
really great name.
you know, extrapolate that, you get problems. You know, like it's
Sparkle motion is what the dance troupe is called. That line where it's like, sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion cracks me up every time.
Yeah.
This film is so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's, even though he's like, you know, he's preventing all these bad things from happening, there's still a lot of really bad shit that goes on because he doesn't intervene.
Do you think then the film is trying to say, just from like that reading, which I like it more than the meta reading, which is like trying to say something about cinema. Do you think that
Every film says something about cinema?
No, that's not true.
It's cinema says things about cinema.
That's
like
not
it's
true. The Despicables 2 is not about cinema.
Yes, it is.
It's
You could make it about cinema.
I could try. We might. Actually, I do like that film. So from that perspective, from that reading, like, do you think that this film is that? Because it's about like teen acts. Like this film tricked a bunch of like edgy into filmmaking teens into being interested in like drama, and like it's a film about like drama and trauma. Like it really is. It's about like growing up and the trauma of.
It's not a it's like it's not a horror film.
It's ostensibly a rom-com,
like,
but it's really well written.
It's not a rom-com.
Well,
it's a rom. Sure,
it's pretty funny. It's a funny film.
It's
It's
a Shakespearean.
It's darkly comedic.
Yeah, so it's Shakespeare.
Although I will say, when I was young and I saw this, I was like, this is so cool and so fucking edgy. And when I watched it this time, I was like rolling my eyes at a lot of it.
So
like
lame,
when he's like, he goes, why are you wearing that rabbit? What's the line? He's, why are you wearing that rabbit suit? And he goes, why are you wearing that human suit? Or whatever the line is.
Yeah.
When I was like,
you're like
when I
so
was like
deep
16,
and meaningful.
I was like, dude.
But now
holy
it's like
human suits, dude. But now I'm like, come
it's really
on.
dumb.
God. But like, it still has it. But that's what you feel like when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
This is a film.
This is
for
like
teenagers.
this is I'm 14 and this is deep. The
Right.
film.
And that's really, but the cool thing about it is it prompted me, I mean, I think it's like an anecdote, but it prompted me to like be interested in why I was like engaged with it. And I don't know that it has like a deeper level. Like, sure, you know, there's no real subtext. That's what at the start when I said it's complicated but not complex.
Well, it's like
the narrative is complicated, but there's no complex themes being explored. It's quite straightforward.
Especially if you watch the director's cut. The complexity goes up and the subtext just disappears because it just explains the film.
The editor saved it, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, they explain what...
Wait, I wonder who edited it, because we could get him to re-edit The Dark Tower maybe.
When I was sort of doing my, again, very brief research, I came across this guy who just explained the film entirely based on things that are present within the director's cut, which again, I didn't see. And I'm glad I didn't see it because that reading was really boring. It's like... Donnie is a time traveler. Frank is also a time traveler.
Right.
Everyone's a time traveler, and you're like, really? It's like, yeah, it's in the book.
Yeah, it lacks
so in
any interest.
the book, he gets the philosophy of time travel, which they only briefly show the inside of in regards to the
in the director's cut.
In the director's cut, they literally read the entire book. Yeah. And it just don't read the director's cut of this fucking film.
God.
Don't watch it.
Don't do anything.
Just
with
don't.
it.
Like the theatrical cut is fine. It's on Netflix. It's the good one.
Yeah,
which is nice. As
it's
opposed to
nice
like usually Netflix always gets the. Usually the director's cut's better.
I was trying to work out why this film. So no, you go ahead because I'll touch on this.
Normally the director's cut is better, and Netflix never has it. But this time you saved yourself. Netflix has the good one.
Yeah, you're welcome. Internet.
You're welcome, everyone else. So thanks, Netflix.
Do you think that like that being the case, that this was kind of saved in the editing bay, and that like it's so explained?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I feel like.
Well, like, is that a correct read? Like, because this is my concern. Like, especially with like meeting stuff. Like, we talk about BoJack.
Is the edit like the director's edit? Is that you know the way it was meant to be, and therefore the correct?
One of the criticisms we get a lot with like our interpretations, especially at BoJack, and it's one of the reasons I think people like them the most, is they have a level of like subjectivity because of the way that show is made. Where like we engage with different themes personally because they relate to us personally. Whereas I think with this film, because there isn't enough subtext to it. Like, BoJack has a lot going on under the hood. Yeah. This is very much... There's, like, 3 readings, and you pick one of them, right? Do you think that because there is a director's cut that is utter nonsense, that it, like... I don't know, like, I feel bad about, like, trying to recommend this to people, because I feel like it makes you feel like you're being smarter than you are when you watch it, and you come out of it, and you're like, oh... This was pretty straightforward, it turns out.
Yeah, well, there's the easy solution to that is to watch the director's cut,
Right,
and then
but
it
I
just
don't
turns
want
into
to.
not as good a film.
It'd be terrible.
Yeah.
So okay, so like let's pretend that we're just talking about the. That being said, like let's say the director's
I haven't
cut
seen the
is-
director's cut, so to me, it's just.
I watched half of it and
Oh, you
I
get-
couldn't.
yeah.
It's
Like,
unbearable.
Like to me, it's just To me, it is basically a fan theory.
So as
you
an
know?
example, like the surrealist elements of the actual film that are interesting, like when the I don't know if it's I can't remember. It's like a spear or something is embedded in the statue, or if it's I can't remember what, or an axe. Something just after the fire or the flood. I think
when he floods
After
and
the flood.
the axes in the head of the
and
dog.
and he goes, "There's no way that could happen. That's pure bronze or whatever." In the director's cut, it's explained that people who travel through time sometimes get superpowers, and that Donnie was just real strong.
I wish you didn't tell me that.
Right, it ruins it. It ruins it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it ruins.
I knew he had powers like being over the sea.
But the point of it is that you question whether that's actually happening, not that he has superpowers.
I would have. To me, the axe in the head is just a really dumb throwaway gag.
I thought it was
Throwaway
funny.
because they don't call back to it. You know, I was half expecting when they show the shot of what's her name, the Asian girl.
The one minority, I can't remember her name.
Yeah, the one.
Yeah, in the Sparkle Dance Troupe.
Yeah. No, she's the one that's dancing as like the angel before the dance troupe.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, her. She's like when she's like sitting at the bulldog and it like cuts to a pan out to like a wide shot. I was like, I'm so sad that the axe still isn't in the dog set. I wish they just left it there.
Well, but it's like,
but again, I mean, that's just
did it happen? Like,
yeah,
and in the
they got it out, I guess.
Yeah, in the actual text, you're like, huh. But how would they get it out? Because they're like, how did they get it in there?
Yeah.
Like, those questions generate interest as a watcher, where you're like, what the fucking shit is happening?
Yeah, and when there are no responses, when there's not responses, when there is no explanation to it, it becomes a case of like, okay, well then it puts a little interest, you know, it adds just a spark of like maybe the scene isn't the way it is presented.
Yeah,
maybe
it's
this
like
is
Inception light. Where like, you know that the ending of Inception everyone is raving about all the time, where it's like, was it a dream, was it not? And you go back through the film and you try and work out thematically how that and you go, well, you know,
yeah, this, that, and the other.
This for me is the
kids were the totem.
This is like less pretentious because like that film. I don't know.
It's not like it...
I don't like films that when you go through and you have to like treasure hunt for details. That to me is the laziest fucking thing. Like that's so lazy filmmaking. Whereas with this, it's like it's about the thematic. It's like it doesn't matter.
This film
whether...
doesn't end on like a long shot of the axe in the head.
Yes.
Like it just there's the axe in the head and then they get it out. Just zoom in on that dog.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I think that like people talk about like Nolan as being this kind of luminary of this style of like. Introspective, deep cinema.
Confusing cinema.
But it's confusing. And you have to watch Inception 8 times to understand it. And when you do...
Get the big bucks.
Right, when you
Get the money, bums in seats.
The worst part is when you do, you're like, oh, it's not that complicated. I was just trying to look for details instead of reading the themes. And I feel like this is a good example of a film that can kind of do both. But I wanted to talk really quickly about something that I dug up during my research, which is... I touched on it earlier, which is this idea of like, why are there crows? What's happening? Are we in a graveyard? That's going to come up on the audio, and I can't do anything about it. I can't shoot birds. It's a crime in Australia.
Yeah, they're
also,
protected.
I don't have a gun. Because I could get one.
Because it's a crime in Australia.
Yeah, it's also a crime. So we touched before on this idea that like this happens in like a post-Reagan America.
Post or like during, because there's the scene where
this is well early 80s.
This 83.
He said 83, right?
83 or 88. 80 something.
I should know that was part of my research.
Because there's that scene where the father is watching the TV, and he's like commenting, and I think Reagan is on the screen. Oh no, it's like one of the Bushes. It's the OG Bush.
Yeah.
Which
is post-Reagan.
I found that scene really funny because I was like, this would be really good characterization if I knew who any of those politicians were.
It works really well if
you understand who those politicians are. Yeah. You want like that's like the equivalent of like now like him watching like Trump versus Hillary and being like, wait, is he like, because he's like super right wing, isn't he? He's like lower taxes.
Who he though? Yeah.
The father. Because he made a comment at dinner table where he's just like, I'm sick of lower taxes.
Yes,
and I think
you're
they
right.
characterize the daughter as being like, the older daughter is just being like
a bit
of a hippie.
Yeah. I'll fucking say as being economically sound, you fucking idiots.
So like, it's like if it was like Trump and Hillary being like, "Meh, get her, Trump." That kind of thing.
I think the better the better interpretation of this is Obama's just gotten reelected, right? So America is patting themselves the fuck on the back, and things are going pretty well. and everyone is like in this state of things are pretty good. And Middle America is kind of internally screaming with this existential crisis of like, things are going too well. Why am I unhappy? And that's this film. It's the same expression of that, where it's like this kind of heightened sense of like middle class America, upper middle class America, like being fine. And all of these characters struggling through that system. So something that I wrote down, this was a note that I made during the film, is that we talked about it before, but I want to kind of delve deeper into it because I want to hear your perspective on this.
Oh no. Perspectives.
So everyone else has coping mechanisms in the society except for Donnie, right? So everyone is like looking at this trauma of this really happy middle America where like the pedophile is allowed to get away and, you know, Donnie is allowed to suffer because the parents don't know what to do with it. And, you know, the physics teacher is basically like, not the physics teacher, who prescribes the controversial book?
Physics teacher.
The physics teacher, yeah. She's punished for...
What?
No,
sorry. Yeah, there's so many books in this film.
That's the English teacher,
Yeah,
right?
so the English teacher is reading The Destructors.
And she's punished
the
for that
physics teacher gives him the book on time travel.
The English teacher is punished for a controversial novel.
It becomes controversial because of Donnie
of the
flooding the
right?
school.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those don't have correlation in real life. If a school gets flooded... and the book that you prescribed has flooding in it, I can see why that correlation is drawn. But, like, they don't have any basis in reality. So what I'm interested in with this particular, like, especially, like, as an adult watching this, like, when I was younger, I was like, this fucking thing is deep, dog. But now I watch it, and I'm like, man, the adults are kind of all the worst. Like, as a kid, you're like these fucking squares, but as a grown-up, you're like, man, I get where they're all coming from.
Well, like...
And I could see myself being any of them.
Yeah, like, all of the... Like, I found the mother, Donnie's mother, like, her acting was just phenomenal, just because she got so many opportunities to just play just the stunned astonishment whenever she had interactions with the sort of very religious lady.
That was Rose, wasn't it? Rose Darko?
Or I believe so. Sister? I think that's the sister. Anyway, the mother, like, she, like, you know, every time she had a conversation with the religious teacher, she was just the stunned look on her
shock.
face. Just like, I can't believe you're
her
saying
acting
this
is
to my
incredible
face.
in this film.
Insanely good.
I know that everyone in this film is good, but like
hers is a bar. Hers is like top tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hers and the English teacher, I feel, are like probably the best in this film. And like the English teacher, when she's talking to the principal, and he's like, "I'm sorry that you failed." I was like, "Oh my god, this film!"
There is some writing in this that is incredible.
Yeah,
and like, I mean, obviously, like Jake Gyllenhaal does an incredible job in this, and like
as a 25-year-old pretending to be a high schooler, classic '80s film.
He wasn't that old.
Really, he looks very old in this.
That's because he's always looked old.
Yeah.
It's kind of like casting Brad Pitt in anything. He always looks about 30.
Seth Rogen? Seth Green? Not Seth Green. The weed guy. He's the guy who talks. He's in all the weed films.
The marijuana
boy.
That does sound like Seth Rogen.
It's Seth Rogen. He's in this film.
Is he?
He's the you know, the bully, like the crazy one.
Well, that was during.
He's like his friend.
That was during Freaks and Geeks. So that sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah, Seth Rogen's in
I'm
this
gonna
film.
control Seth.
And he's okay in it. But like, yeah, like all of the characters.
He was Ricky Danforth.
Yeah, the friend. Like, yeah, all the adults in particular. Yeah, in this film was probably the most interesting part of the film.
I agree, but I think as a teen, you find Donnie the most interesting because you think like that's what you're talking about with the suicide thing. Is like you think that stuff is really engaging as a teen because it's like the kind of like what if you were this like edgy kind of this alternate version of reality.
Well, yeah, and then
whereas like as a grown up, you look back and you go, man, the adults in this are really struggling.
And there's like the film really does pander to that kind of like pseudo intellectual teenager thing, especially like the scene where he's ranting about the Smurfs.
Yes,
is like that's so I don't know how to put it. It's like just stereotypically like Rick.
It's no
like right like
it sounds like a satirical bit that Bo Burnham would do in his stand up.
Yeah,
where he'd be like, "Can you believe the Smurfs?" and like be doing a play up of something
where he that kind of like super ingrained and like
trying
fanatical about something where it's just like, dude, like what's the point of life? Well, it's more where he just has like such a deep knowledge about the Smurfs,
right?
Where on like the surface you're like, it's so wacky and weird, but then it's like,
Yeah,
where does it go?
It's like intellectualism for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And that like I think this film is a good example of like how you can do that without being really obtuse. Like because
It wasn't too bad.
Well,
Because I mean, it's I guess like he is sort of drinking. I don't know. There's a lot of weird sort of scenes in this film.
Yeah.
Sort of one thing I saw was the sort of reference to the fact that the three sort of vices that Jim Cunningham refers to as like drugs, alcohol, premarital sex, and Donnie does all three of those.
Yes.
He doesn't like drugs is a bit. I think the drugs one is a bit funny because
that's a comment on like American pharmaceuticals.
Well, no,
right?
I think that you could say that,
especially post-Reagan, like that's not accidental.
My reading from that was when he gets the cigarette off one of his friends at the start of this film, and his friend is like, "Man, this is some good shit." And he's just like, "Dude, it's just a cigarette."
Right.
Like they were trying to make it weed, but because they're teenage kids, it's just like, "Dude, it's just a cigarette."
Actually, no, that's interesting though because I think that like that scene especially solidifies Donnie as not being a fuckboy. Like, so in modern context,
and
right,
like
if you were trying to create a teen icon that you could, or like a teen template that any guy and any girl who's like intellectually engaged but hasn't quite realized themselves is gonna like identify with, the guy who goes, "Just a fucking cigarette, dude," that's the guy that you like associate with, right?
Right.
He's not the guy who's like smoking's cool. He's the postmodern version.
He's the guy who's like he smokes because it's cool, but it's not cool.
Yeah, like he vapes now because it's ironic. Like he's like that. Like that's what that is.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy to me. Like and that's what fucking Kelly was talking about in that quote at the start. Like the film is timeless because those elements aren't tied to moments in time.
They're just tied to dumb teenagers.
Yeah, every teen goes through that. Every teen is like this kind of... we all go through that phase where we're like, why do our parents watch The Bachelor? It's so fucking boring and dumb. And like, you ask them why they like it, and they go, oh, because I can turn my brain off and it's senseless. But like, as a teen, you're like,
I'm going to go play my video games.
Yeah, you want to be so fucking like engaged and interesting that you forget that like, it's fine to be the mother who is just trying to keep her fucking family together, right? And like, just wants her kids to be happy. And I don't know, like, I think as a kid, like I really liked this. Like I saw it at your place, and I was like really intensely interested in why I liked it.
I did not care about this film when I was younger.
Right, but then I did because I was like I thought it was intellectual, and
I think I hadn't hit that age yet. I think I was just a little bit 2 years too much of a baby boy.
It was a bit early.
Yeah.
But then looking back at it now, like I can see why this film has a real texture to it. Like, you know, those ramping shots where they time ramp, like it goes into the slow motion, like Zack Snyder style. That was all done with film, not digital.
That's cool.
They literally like changed the reel speed and shot those in real time. It's not digital. And you think about that stuff and you go, wow, like that's why the film feels so real, is there isn't an element to it that feels disingenuous.
Except for the really, really bad CG. Oh, I'm very sad that this film came out after The Matrix because... oh man, they have not aged well.
It didn't. It turns out, much like the Phantom Menace, computer graphics were not really up to par as they are now.
Yeah,
it's so bad.
Yeah, the CG is
so bad.
The CG is horrendous.
Yeah, but all the practical effects check out, and like a lot of it was practical.
A lot of it is practical.
But then when there's a CG effect, no, but it means you can tell.
It's like watching Blubber. You remember Blubber?
I don't.
The whole film was just
mostly
Blubber.
for Robin Williams' credit. I try to recall it because he deserves better.
Yeah.
We have to wrap this up, but I like this film for me as a way to start Meaning Month. Meaning Month has a nice.
It's a good wanky film to start Meaning Month with.
Because I think that it's something that's trying to be like trying to thread that needle between being like super cinema and like just normal and accessible.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what we're interested in, is stuff that actually has something to say. And I'm terrified of BoJack Horseman season 5.
Oh fuck me!
There's a 1 minute trailer that came out today, and I haven't watched it, but there's a GIF that I saw, and it's just BoJack waking up and groaning existentially. And I was like, "That's all I need to know."
Yeah, I don't need to see the rest of the trailer. I don't want to see the trailer. I saw the trailer for season 4 in it. I was like, and before I saw season 4, I was like, yeah, kind of like mulled me a bit. I was like, I'm not excited anymore. Right. I kind of gave it away, so I'm not going to watch this one.
That's fair. I think next week we're doing Hotline Miami.
Yeah, totally. That's what we're doing. Yeah. We figured it out.
Well, we did speak about this earlier.
Like 1 or 2.
My plan, the first one, because it's all I can play because of Australia.
I haven't. Yeah, actually.
And we're going to talk
To be
about
fair, the developers did say just pirate our game.
Yeah, which is fair. We're going to talk about like the way that kind of portrays some of the ideas of like capitalism and violence and stuff. It's going to be exciting.
Fun.
So join us for that next week. I'm trying to do a thing where like we're more cognizant and we can tell people to play or do the thing before we talk about it. That way they can check it out.
Oh, yeah. Actually give people a fucking heads up this
Well,
time.
it turns out the show is produced now, so I got to get my shit together. So yeah, next week Hotline Miami, and then the week after that's limbo because we're about to do BoJack the week after that. So we'll let you know when we know about that. But BoJack is going to be the end of the month, the last episode of Meeting Month.
Can't wait to have my heart ruined again. The 5th time.
I was doing pretty okay this week.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's
been alright.
I'm gonna get crushed by that. Yeah, so look forward to that. But do you have any recommendations for this week? What do you got?
I do.
What are you
So, there's this Netflix series called Agretsuko. It's Japanese. It's kind of anime, but it's not. It doesn't. Okay, no, it is anime. It's about a red panda. Everyone's animals who is just like lives just like a working life in Japan, like a businesswoman.
Frustrated with her thankless office job, Retsuko the red panda copes with her daily struggles by belting out death metal karaoke after work.
So that's the show. Like that was like the trailer and like that's the blurb. But the show is actually about like the struggles of being a woman in like the 21st century working environment, combined with also being single in the 21st century working environment. And like the heavy metal thing is just like sort of like it's the card game in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like it's just sort of the thing on this. It's a bad example because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all the card game. It's the
fighting in Dragon Ball Z. It's
the dialogue in Dragon Ball Z. It's the non-fighting.
It's the story in Dragon Ball Z.
It's the story in Dragon Ball Z, and it's like 10 episodes. Each episode is like 15 minutes, so it's literally it's like 150 minutes total. Like you can watch it in the night, and it like her boss is a pig who is like really sexist. Like
already
it's
good.
Like it's just a good time. I think it's probably one of the best sort of like most interesting representations of like working as a female, which Laura tells me this again. I'm not a female working, but was watching with Laura and she was just like, this is actually quite accurate. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, nice.
It's on Netflix.
Speaking of Netflix, I've been watching Magic for Humans on Netflix. It's just like a
Is it just like a Magic the Gathering tutorial, like for humans?
Oh, that'd be so
as
good.
opposed
It's
to
not.
like for
It's
centaurs.
It's this guy who just goes around. He's just like a normal magician, but he just
like a street
like
illusion?
a Darren Brown style dude.
Okay, so
right?
like magic magician,
Yeah.
not like illusion.
It's a bit of both.
Chris Rock.
He's
Mind Freak. Wait,
Chris Rock
Chris
Mind
Angel.
Freak.
Chris Angel Mind
Chris
Freak.
Rock Mind Freak. No, he's just like a chill dude. But the best part about it is like it's to make people happy, and it's just really wholesome, and it's just really nice. And I watched like 5 episodes last night because it was so nice.
Yeah.
I'm looking through. I'm trying to see what else I've been doing. Like I've kind of it's not been a lot.
That's it.
I've nearly finished Darkest Dungeon. We talk about
Jesus
that all the
Christ.
fucking time. Highly recommend that.
Get a hobby, David.
I have one.
Nearly told you to get a job, but it's probably a bit too real.
Yeah, that's rude. No, I did watch the Batman and Harley Quinn animated film, which just came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
The writing is shockingly good, but the execution is a bit lacking.
Shockingly shocking.
Yeah, it's not great, but the writing's really good. Like the dialogue is almost smart.
I probably won't watch it.
No, I wouldn't, but it's it's possibly fine. But recommendations aside, where can people find us if they wanted to follow us and support us?
Facebook,
DCMworks social,
YouTube,
youtube.com/DCMworks,
Twitter. You can put the URL between my hands.
Oh, at DCM_works.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks.
Buy David's book, maynardtrick.com. All right, that's all we have to do. All right, see you next week.
Wow. I don't know if I like you taking over the outro. You kind of I need to do my podcast voice and try and sell things. And
No, you gotta do the actual outro. I forgot. We gotta plug our Twitter handles.
Well, the only thing I was gonna plug before
I'm at Literal Citrus.
No, we're not done yet. I have to do the plug.
Right, sorry.
I have to do the plug. The other thing that I was gonna plug is if you're like watching this on iTunes, listening to rather. And you want to review it, we're actually we've decided that we are contractually obligated to read those out on air if you do leave a review. So if you do
We've decided.
So if you do give us a 5-star rating,
the contract.
we have to read it out on air on this show.
Or else Steve Jobs will come back and scream at us
And
through
you
the
know
window.
how scary Ghosts is.
Yeah.
So, if you leave a review on iTunes, it does genuinely help out the show. And if you leave a comment on this episode of the Arthritis Podcast on YouTube with a review of the show, we will also read that out, unless you use cuss words, and I'll bleep those out. So, yeah.
You bleep out their cuss words, but not ours.
Not ours, because I can say cunt whenever I want.
Exactly.
You're on the fucking watch, mate.
You guys
so,
aren't allowed to.
Yeah, you watch out.
PG-13 in the chat. Thanks.
Yeah, and if you want to support us on Patreon, our lowest tier is $3 a month. If you subscribe, you get access to a bunch of other content, behind the scenes stuff, audiobook stuff, all kinds of good exclusive, early access, whole bunch of things. Over 60 episodes of behind the scenes podcast, open to suggestion. We got Interface Part 8 coming out this week, if I ever get it finished, because boy, I put some time into this one. I'm very excited for you guys to
I'm
hear
excited
it.
as well, because I don't fucking hear them.
Yeah,
after, like,
I put a lot of work into this.
I hear the
now.
before, and then just a while later,
Yeah,
I hear the after.
you do the easy bit, and I do like 40
Yeah.
hours of work.
Yeah, exactly.
So look forward to that. Or if you've been enjoying our 3-minute kind of breakdown videos, editors pick videos, you get those about a week early on Patreon. So patreon.com/DCMworks. Or if you just want to follow us individually, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie.
I'm at Little Citrus.
And we will see you guys next week.
You put your hand in my frame, so I put my hand in your frame.
Oh, no, hang on. Do the ET thing. But like make the perspective weird.